You head out in a broad arc with the others, spreading through the trees like wisps of breath. There's tension in the air, and it's not just the cold. It's the knowledge that everything, the warmth, the food, the next week of songs and storytelling, depends on what happens next. You spot it first. The bison is massive. You almost laugh, because how is this not a joke? You're going to throw sticks at that and hope it falls over? But no one else is laughing, and now your feet are already moving. You shout. Others shout. The beast snorts, confused, then bolts in the exact direction you're herding it. It runs into the kill zone, narrow rock walls that funnel it like water into the spears of the main party. The impact is sudden. Spears fly. Screams echo. The bison charges once, twice. Someone's thrown clear, win knees, always too eager. You hold your breath. Finally, it staggers. Knees buckle. The world goes silent except for the sound of its final breath. Fringe tidbit: some bison kills were followed by what might have been dances or rituals. Footprints in ancient kill sites suggest post-hunt ceremonies, possibly to honor the animal or maybe to shake off the adrenaline. You approach the carcass, heart still hammering. Blood steams in the snow. The hunters work fast, there's no time for sentimentality. You help peel the hide, warm and heavy in your hands. It smells like iron and earth and victory. As the meat is divided, bones are cracked for marrow, and fat is scraped for storage, a child tugs your sleeve. She holds up a shard of bone, freshly cleaned, and presses it into your palm. You're not sure if it's a thank you or just a random toddler gift, but you nod solemnly like it's sacred. Because honestly, maybe it is. You eat that night until your stomach protests. Then someone tosses bison fur over your shoulders, and the entire camp settles into a low, sleepy murmur. There's laughter, even flirting. Someone makes a joke about you nearly getting flattened by the bison, and you laugh too, because it's funny now, right? Historians still argue whether Paleolithic people formed lasting romantic pair bonds or if relationships were short-term and fluid depending on group needs. Either way, someone just winked at you over the fire. That's something. You drift toward sleep under stars so sharp they look like they could cut you. A sliver of moon slides behind a cloud. The wind rustles the pine needles like a lullaby. And you think maybe, just maybe, you're getting the hang of this life. You're not just surviving it anymore. You're living it. You wake to the faint creak of leather and the soft sound of someone sharpening a blade. The bison is gone, well, most of it. What remains is carefully bundled, meat wrapped in hide, bones sorted, sinews drying. Nothing is wasted, not even the hooves. You chew on a bit of marrow-rich bone as you watch the elders scrape the hide clean with flint tools, their hands methodical and sure. It's not glamorous, but it's sacred. You help where you can, though you're still figuring out which parts of the process won't accidentally result in tendinitis or missing fingers. Someone finally hands you a chunk of frozen fat with a nod. Your new job is tallow prep. You press and scrape until your palms ache, realizing that relaxing day at home in the Paleolithic translates to let's turn animal parts into survival kits. Mainstream historical fact: fat, especially from large game like bison, was rendered into tallow, used not only for cooking and preserving meat, think pemmican, but also as fuel for lamps. Your ancestors were basically inventing candlelight dinners 20,000 years ago. You spot a flicker of movement, someone's carving symbols into a flat stone with a bone pick. You edge closer. It's the quiet hunter, the one who always smells faintly of charcoal. His fingers move with practiced ease, shaping a spiral, then a series of dots. You're not sure what it means, but you know it means something. Fringe tidbit: some Upper Paleolithic carvings may represent proto-calendars, tracking moon phases, animal migrations, or women's menstrual cycles. That dot-filled antler fragment you thought was decoration? Possibly the first planner. The air smells of smoke, leather, and pine. It's the kind of scent you'd bottle and sell as Ode to Ice Age. Someone starts singing, not words, just humming, and a few others join in. The rhythm is soft, like snow on bark, and for a moment you forget where or when you are. Then a new task calls. Someone hands you a sharpened flake and points to the pile of bones. You're making tools now. At first, it's all accidental stabs and oops, that was a knuckle. But then you start to feel the logic behind it. The shape of the tool is already in the bone, you're just coaxing it out. Like a weird, prehistoric Michelangelo, if Michelangelo ever carved alls out of femurs. You even shape a crude needle, drilling a tiny hole through one end. It's not perfect, but it's yours. You hold it up like it's a magic wand. Someone claps you on the back. Maybe you finally graduated from burden to not entirely useless. Historians still argue whether Paleolithic toolmaking was passed on via formal teaching or simple imitation. Either way, your fingers are cramping, and the only thing you're sure of is that this is way harder than it looks in the documentaries. As twilight creeps in, so does the cold. You rub your hands and blow on them, watching the steam curl like breath from the earth. The food is packed. Tools are bundled in hide. Tomorrow, you'll move again, but tonight, there's time. Time to sit near the fire, legs stretched out. Time to sip hot broth from a horn cup. Time to let your body sag into the warm embrace of exhaustion. And time for stories. The oldest woman begins. She speaks with the cadence of cracking firewood in wind through reeds. The story's about a boy who turned into a wolf to lead his people across a frozen river. Someone laughs at the punchline, even though it's a tragedy. You lean your head on your wrapped pack and stare up at the stars. The night sky here is wild, no light pollution, no distractions. Just pinpricks of ancient fire, watching you the same way they watched the real Paleolithic people. And maybe, just maybe, they watched you before. One of the kids curls up next to you, their breath soft against your sleeve. You don't move. You just let the quiet wrap around you like a blanket. You've carved. You've crafted. You've even made soup. And somehow, in the blur of blood and stone, you've started to feel at home. You wake up with a foot in your face. The kid who curled up beside you last night apparently decided your head was the best pillow in camp. You gently reposition them and sit up, back creaking like old bark. The fire's mostly out, save for a few glowing coals. Smoke clings low to the ground, mingling with the frost-laced air. Somewhere nearby, someone coughs and mutters, then starts packing. It's a travel day. Again. Your calves are already protesting, but nobody's asking how your feet feel. You scarf down some leftover broth, pull on the itchy fur layers, and hoist the gear you're now expected to carry. You've graduated from bone-poking newbie to junior porter. Today's trek isn't far, just a relocation to better hunting grounds. But distance, in this era, isn't measured in kilometers, it's measured in blisters and how often you slip on icy moss. Still, the scenery helps. You pass through a patch of frost-coated forest where the trees arch like cathedral columns, tall and silent. The ground glitters like crushed stars. For a moment, it feels enchanted. Mainstream historical fact, many Paleolithic groups were semi-nomadic, following seasonal cycles of game and plant availability. Camps were often temporary, shifting every few weeks or months depending on food sources, safety, and weather. But this isn't just migration. There's a ritual to the movement. At a clearing, you're told to place a stone you've carried, just a small, river-worn one, onto a growing pile. A cairn. A marker. A memory. Fringe tidbit, some archaeologists believe Paleolithic peoples created sacred memory spaces by leaving offerings or symbols at specific places during seasonal migrations. It's prehistoric geotagging, really. The next camp is nestled in a shallow cliff alcove, shielded from the wind and with a clear view of the valley. As soon as you arrive, the group moves like an organism, some fetching water, some digging out old fire pits, others weaving branches into windbreaks. You're handed a bundle of sinew and a half-finished net. Great. Not work. You sit beside a teenager who clearly knows what they're doing. They barely glance your way before nudging you toward a rhythm under, pull, loop, twist. Your fingers fumble, then adjust. Eventually, the mesh begins to grow. It's repetitive, oddly meditative. Not tighten, not tighten. It gives your mind space to wander. You wonder how many of these nets have been made in this exact spot, over thousands of years. It's not a new camp. It's a return. Historians still argue whether Paleolithic people had structured seasonal calendars or if they relied purely on environmental cues. Either way, the instinct to return to proven safe zones must have been hardwired. By afternoon, a small group heads out to inspect the nearby creek for signs of fish. You're invited, mostly because you're carrying the net. The creek is cold and fast, but shallow enough to see the pebbled bottom. Tiny silver shapes flicker beneath the surface. With a lot of splashing, a bit of yelling, and one dramatic faceplant, the group manages to trap a few. Not exactly a feast, but definitely a win. Back at camp, the mood lifts. Kids play with sticks like they're spears. An elder coaxes a tune from a bone flute, its sound thin and eerie, like wind blowing across a bottle top. Someone starts decorating a rock wall with streaks of ochre. You approach cautiously. The painter, a woman with speckled paint across her cheeks, nods and hands you a chewed reed brush. Well, here goes nothing. You dip the tip into reddish pigment and draw a shaky line. Then another. Eventually, you commit to the outline of a reindeer. It's more derpy horse than majestic beast, but you're not kicked out of the art club, so that's something. Mainstream fact: Paleolithic cave paintings weren't just art, they often showed animals in motion, symbols, and abstract patterns. Many believe these were connected to hunting, magic, or storytelling. Quirky detail: some researchers argue that handprints found in caves indicate women and even children were primary artists, not just grizzled male shamans. Which makes your juvenile reindeer doodle a proud legacy. As dusk falls, you help smoke the fish and scrape the hide someone's laid across a frame. The rhythm of the tasks has a hypnotic lull, like slow breathing. The panic of your early days has faded. You're not thriving, exactly, but you're not constantly wondering how you'll die next, either. And that's progress. You sit by the fire again, this time a little closer to the center. Someone asks about your drawing, miming antlers with their fingers. You both laugh. It's not exactly fluent communication, but it works. Later, as everyone starts curling up in furs, you trace the sky with your eyes, the constellations unfamiliar but steady. Maybe, in some version of this life, you'd become the artist. Or the net weaver. Or the accidental child pillow. Either way, this camp is starting to feel like something between memory and myth. You wake not to cold or noise this time, but to warmth. Soft, steady, like someone left the fire burning just for you. Turns out, they did. One of the older women is up early, hunched near the fire pit, gently feeding it with bark shavings and dry pine. She glances over and grunts approvingly. You grunt back. It's the most fluent conversation you've had all week. Today begins slower. The camp isn't moving. For once, there's time to breathe, to stretch without packing, to exist without trudging. That alone feels like luxury. Mainstream historical fact: camps often alternated between active hunting days and rest days, time for tool repair, drying food, tending injuries, and oral storytelling. These weren't idle societies, they were just paced differently, governed by necessity, not clocks. You're tasked with inspecting the traps laid yesterday, woven cord snares and crude pit covers baited with fermented tubers. You go with two others, one quiet teen, one old man with a limp and a surprising sense of humor. You find tracks, hare, maybe fox. One of the snares is triggered, success. A rabbit, stiff and silent. You kneel beside it. The old man kneels too, murmurs something under his breath, and then gently retrieves it from the trap. No waste. No glee. Just acknowledgement. Fringe tidbit: some early human groups are believed to have had rituals or gestures of respect for hunted animals, offering thanks, returning bones to specific places, even miming return with hand gestures. Spiritual ecology, long before the term existed. Back in camp, the day unfolds in long stretches of quiet purpose. You help tan another hide, scraping it with flint until your wrists beg for mercy. Your arms are sore. Your knees ache. You're weirdly proud of that. Later, you're invited to help with a children's game, a form of tag, but with hiding and a lot of whooping. At first, you think you're supervising. Then someone tags you and yells something joyful and you're in. You run. You fall. You laugh. And for a moment, it's not reenactment. It's not education. It's just play, something ancient and evergreen. Mainstream historical fact: there's strong archaeological evidence that Paleolithic children had games and toys, miniature spears, carved animals, and even flutes. Play was both social training and survival simulation. By afternoon, you're helping carve a new tool, a digging stick for foraging. You're finally getting the hang of working with bone, shaping it slowly over a fire-smoothed rock. You're shown how to add notches, not just for grip, but to mark ownership or maker identity. It's your first true Paleolithic signature. Evening brings new smells, someone's experimenting with pine resin, possibly trying to waterproof a pouch. The smell is sharp and sticky. Another person boils crushed bark in a hide pot, tannins for hide treating, or maybe medicine. You watch, fascinated, as the water darkens. Quirky historical fact: bark infusions were some of humanity's first medicines. Willow bark, for example, contains salicin, a natural precursor to aspirin. Your ancestors were low-key chemists. You're offered a sip. It's bitter, almost metallic. You nod solemnly like it didn't make your tongue try to flee. The night falls soft, wrapped in the scent of wood smoke and pine resin. This time, you don't curl up by the fire alone. The kid from 2 nights ago climbs into your fur pile again, already snoring. 2 dogs nose into the circle. Someone sings, low, wordless. You're no longer visitor or odd one. You're just here. You lie back and stare up at the stars again. No satellites. No blinking planes. Just the Milky Way, thick, ancient, and terrifyingly perfect. You trace the familiar constellations, wondering how long humans have done this. Thousands of years? Tens of thousands? You imagine some long ago ancestor tracing these very same stars with a smoky fingertip on a cave ceiling. What stories did they tell? What shapes did they see? You feel, briefly, both very small and very old. Somewhere nearby, a flute begins again. The sound is cracked and off-key. You love it anyway. The last morning doesn't feel like a beginning or an end. It simply is. The air carries the faint promise of coming rain, metallic, heavy, and tinged with green. Someone is already grinding dried roots into powder near the fire. Another is reshaping a spearhead with short, rhythmic clinks. You sit up slowly, sore in all the same places but oddly comforted by the routine of it. Your furs fall from your shoulders and a dog sighs dramatically at being disturbed. You pet it. It accepts your apology. Your task today is different. You're joining 2 foragers to search for edible greens, early berries, and wild onion shoots. It's a walk more than a hunt. No rush, no urgency. You pass animal tracks, moss-covered logs, trees with claw marks. The forest breathes around you like an old friend telling secrets. Mainstream historical fact: Paleolithic diets were far more diverse than the meat and mammoth stereotype suggests. People ate nuts, berries, tubers, seeds, insects, and even certain types of clay, anything that wouldn't kill them and might provide nutrients. You're handed a digging stick, the same one you helped shape yesterday. It fits your palm perfectly. A small mark, your mark, reminds you it's real. You feel absurdly proud. Like this is what all your modern achievements have been leading up to, the ability to dig up onions with dignity. As the 3 of you forage, the older woman shares odd tips in between moments of silence: mushrooms to avoid, leaves that sting, plants that smell sweet but lie. You nod, try to remember. It's like cramming for an exam, except the penalty for failure is worse than a bad grade. Fringe tidbit: some Paleolithic groups are believed to have practiced proto-permaculture, encouraging the growth of desirable plants by leaving certain roots unharvested or scattering seeds. A whisper of farming before farming had a name. You find berries, not many, and most are bitter, but they go in the pouch anyway. Your fingers are stained. Your stomach grumbles. You joke about being ready to trade a whole pouch of bark for a pizza. No one laughs. That's fair. Back at camp, there's a subtle shift. People aren't packing, exactly, but they're prepping. Furs are being inspected. Tools are counted. Someone is quietly reshaping the fire pit into a safer ring of stones. The season is turning. You can feel it in the wind. Historians still argue whether early humans had seasonal base camps or if they moved fluidly, always chasing game. But today, it feels like this camp is winding down, like a song trailing off into quiet. You're invited to share the evening meal, a thicker stew this time, with something that might be wild carrot. You eat slowly, savoring it, even though it tastes mostly like root. As the sun dips, a quiet ritual unfolds. Someone starts humming. Others follow. It's not a song, exactly. More like a tone, a shared frequency. Then, gestures. Palms pressed together. Hands open to the sky. A touch of the ground. It's communication without words, and you understand none of it, but also, strangely, all of it. You mimic the gestures. No one corrects you. Mainstream historical fact: before structured religion, many Paleolithic groups likely had spiritual rituals tied to nature, the hunt, or the stars. These rituals weren't standardized. They were inherited through gesture, mimicry, and repetition, just like this. Night deepens. The fire is stoked one last time. You notice someone smoothing down your bedding, your spot. A silent acknowledgement: you belong, even if you're about to leave. A child gives you a carved object. It's crude, small, possibly a bear or a dog or both. You turn it in your fingers, trying not to cry or laugh. You settle for nodding like it's the most precious thing you've ever held. It kind of is. Fringe historical fact: small carved figurines from the Upper Paleolithic, like the famous Lion Man of Germany, suggest symbolic thought, storytelling, and even totemic beliefs. Some may have been